As you know, your senior year, you had change within your high school. Coach Neely left, and they brought in Coach Igowski, Coach E. Um, was there excitement on your end for the possibility of a new offense, something that can help you out? Because you had two great quarterbacks. You had Sean Sims. Now, he was gone now, but you had Sean Sims, and now you got Eric Irvin Woods, who had a cannon. So, what was your expectations with the arrival of Coach E?
I remember when Coach Neely decided to step down, and we found out in school, and everybody was upset. That was the only head coach that we had at the time that we knew. But when we found out about Coach E coming in, it's like, oh, this guy from college. They got a quarterback coach that's coming in that put up big numbers at Illinois Benedictine. So we're like, cool. And I remember training in the summertime before the season started. I told Wooms, I said, we're gonna be like AT&T, connecting everywhere. I told Wooms, I said, man, there's no way in the world that they'll be able to stop us as long as we threw the ball. Because I'm always, us receivers, we're always open. I mean, I don't know how many times I came back to the huddle and said, Wooms, why you ain't throw the ball? I'm open, man.
Yeah.
I mean, but probably he was scrambling for his life or something like that. But I was very excited. I thought that I was going to be able to take my game up to the next level, because prior to that, I remember after my sophomore season, going to my junior year, I started to get letters from schools. First one was from Indiana State saying, we're interested in you playing. And then I actually got the letters from Northwestern saying, we're interested in you playing with us. And actually Princeton was another school that was interested in me playing football for them. So, going into my senior, I'm like, cool, I got these things lined up. I'm gonna show out this year. And unfortunately, we had another bad season. And if the quarterback doesn't get the receiver the ball, how are you gonna shine? And I think I may have had around 400 something yards in receiving my senior year. I mean, it wasn't nothing compared to what my junior year was, because I made the crown points all opponents team my junior year. I drew double teams all the time. I mean, they always had to bring a safety over, so whoever else was on the other side was going to get their numbers. And not to say that we threw the ball a lot. If you look at Eric Irvin's stats, he may have thrown for 900 yards that season. I had half of those yards. But yeah, it was very disappointing as the season went along. But at the beginning, I was very excited, because I thought Coach E's scheme was going to bring us something that we never seen before. I mean, we had a pro-style offense. I mean, we had guys, great line, great run schemes. I mean, we never had counters in our game. It was pretty much like, dive left, dive right, maybe a sweep here, a sweep there, reverse. Coach E brought a new type of game to us, and unfortunately, we couldn't catch on, that fast, because it was, he had pretty much like a half a season to get us ready, for our senior year. And then of course, after that you got teams like Ping's team and the other teams after that, they just start building that on the record. So I think that it was a real good experience. I thought that we were going to do great, but unfortunately, we lost more than we won. So what can you say?
This is something that I want to talk about, is because, as you know, a lot of our athletes don't have this on their resume. Academics, very intelligent guy, student athlete. Kind of give us a brief on your preparation academically, how you took that serious enough as a student athlete.
Well, academics was number one. I mean, my father had a rule that said if you don't get your grades, you're not going to play any sport. And when I meant grades, he wasn't talking about C's. He wanted me to excel A and B's, and I was on the A/B honor roll all my life. National Honor Society student, graduated top 15 in our class, and I made sure I had my grades. I mean, college prep courses. I applied to maybe 30 schools in the nation. Got rejected by one, and that was Princeton, because my SAT score wasn't high enough. I needed a 1200. I think the highest I got was like the 1150 on my SAT. So, I mean, but you're talking Princeton.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
You're talking Princeton, but that's how it actually fell out. But education, it gets you to where you have to be, because I wasn't going to be a pro athlete, but the education actually helped me along a lot.
I shook my head and being proud 'cause I'm looking like 1150. Like, you were disappointed having 1150, and that just shows how serious you were about your academics.
Exactly.
Well, I dream of having 1150, man. So, what did you receive any attention? Because let's keep it real. Did you receive any attention from your teammates who didn't have their grades, and you getting all Princeton and everybody's coming after Northwestern? These schools want you academically and athletically. Was there tension among that with the athletes who didn't have the grades?
No, actually, I mean, not really, because I was just one of the guys. I mean, it wasn't like I stuck out, being okay. Well, Stratton's is brainiac, and he doesn't get along with everybody, because I hung out with everybody. Some of my best friends, we all grew up in the same neighborhood, so it wasn't like just because I was smart, they treated me different. They treated me just like any regular guy. I mean, so and I treated them the same way. So it was never any tension like that. Actually, it was more. They were more proud to say, yeah, my boy, he's great academically, and some schools may be looking at him and stuff like that. So that was great. I mean, back when I was growing up, every guy pulled for each other. Nowadays you may have some guys that just looking out for themselves, but back in the day, we always wanted to see the next guy do better. I mean, if you're going to D3, D2, I mean D1, whatever, we want to see you do great. So I've never had any tension as far as that's concerned.
On the topic of academics, we talked about yourself and how you set your standards high. Knowing that you had teammates and friends who were struggling, what approach you took with them? Did you give them any conversation about improving their grades? Did you tutor them? I mean, what was going on?
Yeah, I mean, if guys needed help, I mean, I was always there to help them out, to say, hey, if you need some help on homework, just come see me and I'll help you out if I could. I mean, but a lot of guys, they pretty much they take care of their own academics. I remember guys say, well, I want to sit next to Stroud because he will get all the answers right and everything like that. But I'm like, okay, that's cool, but a lot of guys, they fend it for themselves. But I had great friends and they were like, well, Stroud, I need help on this, I need help on that. I help them out as much as I can, because being in the National Honor Society, that was one of the duties that we had, is to be tutors actually in school. We used to have to come in early, and if there were students that actually needed help, underclassmen or even seniors, the year that I was in, if they needed to come in and need help academically, we were there. So that was one of the duties that we had. So I really appreciated that fact that I was able to help out a lot of people. So
you went to the University of Miami.
The U.
As you and I talked previously in conversations, you explained that was your dream school to go to, yes, besides Princeton. Give us the scenario and how you went to Miami. Like, what took place and you going to Miami?
Well, back in the day when when we used to watch college football, and back in the I would say the late '80s, middle '80s, late '80s, that's when Miami was the program. And I always admired the way that they played football. I loved them. I mean, these guys, they had swag. They felt like, nobody could beat them, and I wanted to be a part of that, because I mean, the last winning season I ever had was, freshman year. And I was thinking, okay, well, maybe if I go to school, I'll walk on, sit on the sideline and get some of the glory and things of that nature. I would soak that up. But, Miami had always been my dream school. But before that, I remember me and my cousin, Corey Battle, we always used to talk about us being the best running backs SMU ever had. Because you remember back in the day, they had Eric Dickerson and what's the guy's name? The white guy, the running back. Craig James. So we modeled ourselves after that. But, after that SMU scandal went down, then I was like, okay, well, Miami's my school. And like I said, I applied to a lot of schools, got into every single school except Princeton. And when I got my acceptance letter, I was like, wow, this is my dream school. Let's do this. So, my parents, they worked hard, and back then, money was hard to come by. and I had to pay, for tuition a little bit. I had got a lot of academic scholarships, not any full rides, but enough to pay for my tuition. And once my parents, submitted the $500 deposit to the school for room and board, it was like, okay, well, you can't just waste $500 and go to another school. I mean, it probably would have been better off going to Purdue or Northwestern or something like that, trying to walk on. But I didn't. I went to my dream school. I don't regret going down there because those are the great years that I had in my life, and I never replaced that.
So, did you try to walk on, and what happened?
Well, I trained actually, from the fall of '90 when I actually got down there. It was me and this guy named Tyrone Philpart, and we actually trained to try to get ready for the spring session. Try to walk on. So we worked out, and we played intramural football. And intramural football down in Miami is competitive because you got a lot of these guys that play high caliber football in high school, and they actually went to Miami, just to get a good education. But when we were out there in the field, it's like, man, these guys are bringing it, And we did that, and then I remember the morning before our session was supposed to happen, where we were supposed to go out and try out to be walk-ons. A couple of guys that we were training with, they came back hurt. Some guys with crutches and ice packs on their shoulders, and when we were in the lunchroom, they was telling us, man, they had us lining up. They said, they had this drill where you just run to a cone, and these guys at Miami, full speed, they just take you out, to see if you're tough enough to be on the team, because, you have to pay your dues. You just can't, walk on and say, oh yeah, I'm just going to be a practice squad player. They want to make sure that you're tough enough, because why even put you out there, if you're not going to be able to give the guys, any type of challenge. So, unfortunately, I decided, well, I wouldn't say unfortunately, but, as far as my athletic career is concerned, that's where it died. I was like, well, I don't think it's worth, going out there to be a human tackling dummy just to put a jersey on and sit on the sideline.
So one of the moments that is tough for athletes is that reality check. It sets in, some at an early age, some at 40, whatever it may be.
Right.
When you decided to not play football anymore, what did you go through mentally with that?
Well, I mean, it was a hard decision. It didn't affect me until later on in life, because, like, you go through college, you have other distractions of, getting your grades, doing the things that you have to do. But, when you start to reminisce, and then I know a lot of athletes have this, and when you get these flashback dreams, and you're dreaming that, you're on the field again. I get them now. I mean, and they drive me crazy, because it's always, I'm about to make a great play, and I wake up, That type of stuff, it haunts me, and it's hard to deal with, because as a competitor, you're used to being at full throttle at all times. And, when you get to a point where you can't do it anymore, I mean, it gets tough. I mean, I stay active. I participate in our alumni football games every year. I try to play softball if there's a softball league around. Just try to stay in shape, try to stay young at heart, young at mind. But it got real hard, and it's like, once you start dealing with it, say, well, when it's time to put them up, you got to put them up. Right now, I'm still holding on to some strings, playing with the younger guys and trying to relive the old glory days. But I don't think I've gotten to the point yet where I actually realize I have to hang them up. So.
Did you graduate from Miami University?
No, I didn't get a chance to graduate from Miami. I actually had to come back after my sophomore year due to the fact that my parents, at that time, it was going through a transition period. My father actually became a preacher, and he gave up his trucking job to become a preacher. So any additional funds that I had going to the school, I had to actually come back because my parents couldn't afford it anymore. So I mean, you're figuring about maybe a couple $1,000s a semester. I could have stayed in school and went all the way through, but unfortunately, it didn't happen. So I just had to go through it the hard way. Came back home. Taking some classes at Purdue Cal, and doing that, and I'm maybe about 17 credit hours short of a degree right now, which I plan to go ahead and finish up, since I have my daughter off to college now. So the next person is to take care of myself and make sure I get those papers. So.
As we all know, you was the great wide receiver, East Chicago Central, one of the best athletes to ever come through East Chicago, period. You also had a younger brother, Snuffy, who's also great in his own. Give me some feedback on your relationship and what you wanted to represent for him as a big brother.
Well, my little brother, he was my best friend. We've been 3 years apart. I mean, we were very close to each other, and I wanted to be a great role model for him to say, okay, well, let me go ahead and go through all the hardships so that you can actually have a smooth road, going through. So, learn from my mistakes. I mean, make a good college choice that fits the situation. I mean, my brother actually ended up playing at Grand Valley State on scholarship. I mean, he was a great player. But I think that if he would have applied himself some more, he could have actually did great things up there. He actually ended up leaving after his freshman year and not going to school when he would have probably been #1 on the depth chart after he got redshirted his freshman year. But he's now in the Army. He's a chief warrant officer, doing great things for the Army. I mean, he's been, I believe, in the Army for over 12 years. Has a great family out in Colorado, and hopefully some of my things that I did as a big brother helped mold him into a great man that he is right now.
Good stuff. Your daughter, you've been doing a great job as the sports dad, making sure that we all are recognizing her talents. We appreciate that. Can you give me your feelings on your daughter's athletic ability and how it makes you feel as a father?
Wow. It's the proudest thing that had happened to me as far as marrying my wife, seeing my daughter be born, was seeing her accept her scholarship to Northern Illinois, because she pretty much extinguished a lot of demons that I had as far as not filling out the potential, because I always felt that I could have been something, athletically. I always had that drive in me, but I always tell her that, you're the best of me and your mom. I'm going to live my life, all the goals that I ever wanted, I'm going to live it through your life. Not to say that I'm getting choked up here, but not to say that I want her to do what I want her to do. I just want to see her excel, and reach another level that I wasn't able to do. And it makes me feel good as a parent. That's why, I use my Facebook as my daughter's recruiting page. Everything that she does, I'm putting it up, and being proud of her, and making sure that she has a good, successful career, outside of athletics. I mean, she's a great student. We always stress academics and say, okay, academics will get you everywhere you need to go. The athletics is pay for your way to school. Even though we would have paid for her school, but why pay for it if you can do it for free? So I'm very proud of that. I mean, I think that's one of the biggest accomplishments in my life, to see my daughter actually come up, graduate from high school, become a Division I athlete, and excel at what she does. So I'm very proud of that.
What was the transition for you like with gymnastics? Like, were you ever familiar with gymnastics prior to her joining, or was it the first time you experienced that?
Well, I mean, first time personally. I mean, of course, we saw, the girls from the Olympics and things of that nature. You really don't actually appreciate it until you actually are in it. I mean, all the traveling, all the practice. I mean, these girls practice 4-hour days, 5 days a week. I mean, that's a part-time job. Plus, you have to balance academics on top of that. So it was a great shift from being an athlete, and then being that that sports dad, to say, okay, well, this is a sport that I'm not used to. But that overall, over the years, you get used to all the terms and the things that need to be done, and then you start critiquing your child and say, okay, this is what you need to do better. So I felt that I made that transition pretty well. I think I did a pretty good job.